Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I just wanted to make a quick video making a little tier list of all of the mainline Pokemon games. Before we get started, I just want to preface this with there's a couple of the older games that I haven't played yet, so don't get mad, but they'll be in the haven't played section. I plan on getting around to them eventually, but right now I can't rank them if I haven't played them yet. But I have a feeling I will quite enjoy at least a few of them. We'll get into that later. And then also, as you can see right here, we have XD God of Darkness and Coliseum, which I also put in haven't played. I did play XD of Darkness as a kid, but it's been so long, I can't really count that. I didn't really make any meaningful progress, which one of these days I will be replaying it, so hopefully then we'll be getting around to it. But yeah, let's get right into the video. Guess we'll start off strong here with Pokemon Diamond, and might be a little bit of a controversial opinion here, but I'm gonna start this one off in C tier. It's not, horrible, but it definitely could be better. I don't have any nostalgia for the game, so partially has to do with it. I missed it by a little bit. My first game ended up being Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so when you hear that, you'd initially think, okay, Gen 4 probably would be like, a game that I'd thoroughly enjoy around that time because I did, I liked the Sinnoh region and I loved the anime at the time, but I just didn't play it as a child. And then going back now, it feels a little sluggish, and it was just hard for me to get into, so I didn't really enjoy it that much. But Pokemon wise, I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the designs. Like they have some very cool Pokemon like Garchomp and Luxray classics. And so Platinum is one of the games that I haven't touched yet, which who knows, maybe I will enjoy that more than Diamond and Pearl. If you played it and think I like it more, please let me know. I'll have to give it a try eventually. Because I've heard that it's like, obviously it's, the third rendition, so it's an upgrade and improves on the formula. Now, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, though. This is definitely biased because it's my first Pokemon game, but it's going straight to S tier. It's probably my favorite game, and that I don't think I could see ever changing. From just the quality of the game to the nostalgia, it's the whole package for me. It's has my favorite generation of Johto, my favorite legendary in Lugia, and just combined with playing it as a child and having so much fun playing with my brother, it can't be beat. Same thing with Black and White. That was the next game I played. I'm gonna put this one in A tier. I loved it, but I know it's kind of divisive. A lot of people don't care for the designs, such as like Garbodor and Klefki, but I feel like all generations have things like that, and a lot of people just like to give Black and White some slack, even though I think it's very underrated. And the whole idea of giving you only Gen 5 Pokemon to play through the game with is very interesting. Because for me, I only like to use newer Pokemon anyways in each generation, so that wasn't a problem. But I know some people will kind of rehash and reuse some of their old favorites, which there's nothing wrong with. But I liked kind of forcing the players to, try out new things and experiment a little bit. Which, if you guys enjoy that game, keep an eye out. Me and my friend Titans are going to be doing a Soul Link coming up for that. I think it'll be quite fun. And next, of course, we have Black and White 2, which I will also be putting in S tier. Even though I played it right after Black and White, and it was the same group of Pokemon, I enjoyed it so much. And I think it improved on everything that Black and White did, and just made it a better formula, which it was a little bit whack of the Pokemon Company to literally release the same exact game just with minor improvements a year later. But I don't care. I'm still gonna buy into it, and as a child, I loved it. Which, by the way, I played Soul Silver and I played Pokemon White, so I'll kind of like to announce that going further. Next up, we have Pokemon X and Y. This is another game a lot of people kind of think is a little bit overrated or just meh overall. I know a lot of people aren't too big of fans of it, but I'm gonna put it in the B tier. It's not my favorite game in the series by any means, but I enjoyed it a lot. It was, our first game where we jumped into 3D, which I thought was pretty cool at the time. Kind of blew my mind after not playing on the DS or playing Pokemon for a few years, and then coming in and seeing X and Y and seeing how much everything has changed, and being able to play online for the first game that I really like played online. It had like online battles and trading, so I thought that was quite cool. Same thing with Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. I played Alpha Sapphire because I love Kyogre and water types. I played Sapphire briefly before it, but I don't think I ever completed. I think I got stuck on the Elite Four, and then kind of just gave up because I was playing on a ROM at the time. But this is my first time truly playing through the Hoenn region. I loved it because I loved watching the anime as a kid growing up, and I just think the Hoenn region has a lot of strong Pokemon, and it's one of those regions where all three of the starters are amazing. You can't go wrong with whichever one you pick. So for those reasons, I'm also going to drop it in the B tier. It's not quite as high tier as these other games I've placed ahead of it already, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. Next up, we have Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which this is the only set of the Pokemon games that I own both copies of. I own Ultra Sun and Moon, because I got them as a gift, and it's kind of funny at the time, but I really enjoyed them. I think kind of the same thing as Black and White too. It improved on the original a lot, but it was also a lot of fatigue. We were already burnt out on playing the whole region, so why would you make us play the same exact region, just with some slight updates? I think it did improve on everything and kind of flesh out the story. And the end game is probably some of the best we've ever seen in the Pokemon series, but I don't think it's anything crazy. Like, some people are now hailing it as the best game in the series, which I don't agree with. I think it's a solid title, this is the first game where they really tried to shake up the formula, but I don't really think it's anything special per se. Following suit, Sun and Moon, kind of the same thing as Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, just worse. It had the unfortunate aspect of coming first before all of the little rehashes and updates. It was still fun, don't get me wrong, but I didn't really enjoy it that much, and the tutorial really took a lot away from it. The tutorial felt like it took ages to really get into the gameplay, and it kind of hindered my enjoyment. By the time I was excited to play the game, but by the time I got to the tutorial, kind of crushed my excitement. But I still enjoyed it. It was a fun time. The trials is a unique aspect, and I like kind of the island scenery is very different from what we're used to, and I thought it was a pretty cool thing. I don't know if it was my favorite idea, but I like that they at least tried something new in this series. Moving on, next we have Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. A lot of people don't really care for these games because, I mean, they are meant for children and it's very simple in nature. But I thought it was a fine game. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm gonna stick it into C at least. I don't think it's a bad game by any means. I think it was pretty fun, and it was very relaxing. I kind of just played casually, didn't really put much thought into it. Just kind of enjoyed catching some Pokemon, and plus I do enjoy Pokemon Go, so I didn't really have a problem with the catching mechanics by any means. I thought it was quite fun. Next up is Red and Blue, which be one that I haven't not played yet. Which I recently picked up a nice copy of Pokemon Blue, so I'm hoping to change that soon. But from what I've heard, this one doesn't hold up too much. So I don't have the highest of hopes for it, but it is the original one. I'd love to see where this series started. Moving on, we have Sword and Shield. I picked up Sword, and most of my friends did as well. I feel like, cool offense just seems way more intriguing than the Shield, but from the game aspect, it was fine. It was a solid game, but nothing crazy. Looking back, it was kind of a disappointment. We waited so long for it, and this is supposed to be the first big leap, a home console game. But what they gave us just really wasn't up to par. The wild area at the time seemed revolutionary, but now I realize how just redundant it is and unimpressive it is. At the time, it was so new because Pokemon never done anything like that. But looking back, it's not really an impressive feature as it seemed at the time. And for that reason, I'm just gonna put this one in C as well. Because kind of right now, for C, what I have going on is they're fine games. I enjoyed them. It's just not my favorite, and kind of with their own flaws. Now, unfortunately, we're moving on to Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. This is where things kind of go wrong for me. This one is going to be our lowest ranked game. It's definitely going in the D tier for me. I played it when it came out, and I unfortunately pre-ordered it. I don't really know why I did that, because while watching the trailers before the game came out, I thought to myself, it doesn't really seem like something I'd enjoy. Playing Diamond previously, it wasn't really my favorite game at all. And then seeing the new chibi art style, I did not enjoy it at all. But my friend was a really big fan of the Sinnoh region, and talking with him made me like really just like, not skip out on it. So I went ahead and pre-ordered it and bought on release, unfortunately. And I did complete the whole game. I mean, I didn't complete the Pokédex, but I consider completing it as running to through the Elite Four, and it was fine. It's an enjoyable game, but I was kind of just ready for it to be over, and a lot of that is in part due to just it's a very faithful port of Diamond and Pearl. I don't understand why they didn't improve some of the Platinum updates because, like, from what I understand, Platinum has so many revisions and improvements that were just left out of the remakes, which I don't really understand. And not to mention the lack of diversity in Pokemon. I felt like while playing through that game, going through route, I was just seeing the same exact Pokemon over and over again. Like so many Bidoof, so many Starlies in the Starly line, and it was just hard to really be excited or really find a diverse team with the limited Pokemon that it gave us. Not to mention the difficulty. I was purposely avoiding battles just so I wouldn't be too over leveled. But I do want to end off on a little bit of a higher note, and I want to say I did like the Elite Four, and Cynthia is one of the coolest champions in any of the series, and she actually did kind of whoop me a little bit. But aside from that, I'm sorry, I just have to stay in D tier. Next, we have one of the more recent ones, Pokemon Arceus. This one is going to go in the A tier as well. Even though it's really fresh and new, I loved it. I liked how it shook up the core of the gameplay, and it was just so unique and divisive, and something that the Pokemon series really need. I wish it could have been more optimized a little bit, but for what we had, I still loved it, and it kept me engaged. Most of the games, by about like a quarter or halfway through the game, I'm tired of catching Pokemon, and I'm not really like looking to collect everything. I'm kind of just looking for the ones I'm interested in. But Arceus engaged me in a way that I haven't experienced with the Pokemon franchise before. It actually kept me intrigued and interested in catching the Pokemon, whether it be just because there are quests and certain incentives for catching multiples of other Pokemon, or just how you could, stealth around and throw Pokeballs, and you didn't have to stop and battle each and every Pokemon. But those couple of things combined just really made it a pleasant experience for me. I do wish that there were a few more battles involved though. I loved the like totem Pokemon and defeating those, but I wish there was something like someone in like store of like a gym leader or Elite Four or something. I think that would have added to the game a little bit. I understand why they left them out because they wanted to completely shake up the core, but I think having a little bit of what makes Pokemon Pokemon and wouldn't have been a bad thing by any means. These next couple I also haven't played, so I'm just going to go and throw them in there quickly. Pokemon Yellow. It's the definitive edition of Blue and Red, which I'll get to eventually, but so far I haven't played it yet, but one day. Same thing with Gold and Silver, which I would like to one day to revisit it because Soul Silver is my favorite game, so I would like to see what it is based off of, but I feel like I might struggle with that one a little bit just because of how much Soul Silver means to me and just how high quality of a game it already is. But it's fascinating to see that they actually were able to include two whole regions on a Game Boy Color game. That just blows my mind sometimes. Same thing with Crystal. If I were to play any of them, I'll probably go ahead and do Crystal just because it's, the optimal version. And plus, I think it's pretty cool that they put Suicune on the cover. I love Suicune. Alright, moving on. We have Ruby and Sapphire. Might be a little bit redundant, but I'm kind of mixed between putting in B tier or C tier. And part of me wants to put it in B tier because I do love the game, but it doesn't really make sense to have it right next to the remake. But I think I'm gonna have to go with that anyways, because they're both solid games. I don't think one is significantly better. They both provide different experiences. Yes, Alpha Sapphire and Mega Ruby are more modern, and they implement megas and whatnot, which I think are pretty cool. But you can't go wrong with the classic. I played the classic before, and I thought it was a lot of fun. And I don't understand the whole complaint of too much water. It's just absurd. It was based on a waters region, and that's just how it was intended to be. It's not really a negative aspect. You could possibly knock it a little bit for having an excessive amount of HMs, but aside from that, it's not really that much of a problem. Moving on, we have Fire Red and Leaf Green. I actually haven't completed these games yet, but I'll probably go back and replay them eventually because I do have a copy of Leaf Green. They're solid games from what I've played so far, and I've watched other playthroughs already. I'm just going to put them in B tier. I know B is getting kind of bloated right now, so I might have to revisit and move a couple up or down. But it's just, most of these Pokemon games are good. Some are excellent, and a couple are, just average, but most of them are just pretty good, and they're always in a fun time. And yes, it is Kanto once again, but Kanto gets all these remakes for a reason. It's popular, it has that nostalgia factor for a lot of people, so I understand why we have so many games from Kanto, and a lot of people like to complain about them, but it's there for a reason, and they're all pretty solid games in their own right. Even the lower quality ones that people would consider stuff like Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, I still enjoy. Moving on, we have Emerald, which we're just gonna have to go ahead and put that right into A tier. I think it's magnificent. I just love the Pokemon in it because I love Hoenn, and it's the same thing as Ruby and Sapphire, but it's just improved upon. And it's already taking a great formula and just making it that much better. So of course we have to boost it up onto A tier. Not really much more I could say aside from what I already said about Ruby and Sapphire. Aside from it's a good region. Don't get me wrong. It's just not one of my favorites. Like these two will probably stay like that for a while. And next, we have the newest games, Scarlet and Violet, which I have a lot of mixed thoughts on them, but I think overall it's an enjoyable game. I think it is a step up from Sword and Shield, but it just could have been so much more. It's so unoptimized and buggy, which I don't have that much of a problem with. I have like a pretty low threshold for that. I can pretty much tolerate it, but it's still just seeing all this missed potential. Like, yes, it is our first open world game, but and it's going to come with its flaws, but I feel like even some of that could have been avoided. Even the things like how the world was implemented, it doesn't really make sense for me to see the world is open, you can go wherever you want, but you kind of are stuck on a path because different regions have different levels. There's no like level scaling. So if I go to challenge a level 60 gym leader when I'm level 20, it doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, I'm still going to have to leave that area and go find somewhere that I can be suited for. And I just wish it could have been implemented a little bit better. But regardless, I think it's a fun region. I'm not the biggest fan of the starters. It's actually the first region that I've ever boxed my starter. I like Fuecoco, and I love his evolution, but I'm just not the biggest fan of Skeledirge, and I really want to do Ceruledge, so going in the box unfortunately. But regardless of the starters, I think the rest of the designs are pretty good. Probably the best we've seen in a while. I like it more than Gen 8 and Gen 7. The legendaries, that's a different story. They're kind of meh. I got Violet because I like purple and I like the futuristic approach, but it's kind of just whatever to me. Another aspect that I do think is pretty interesting is the gimmick of this game with the paradox Pokemon. I think that's pretty unique. It gives a little bit more of a value in the different versions. Usually I think it's quite ridiculous to charge full price for two separate games and then just change a few different things when you could very easily just implement both. But regardless of how I feel about that, it's going to happen. It's the Pokemon Company. I thought it was cool, at least at this time, there's actually themes between the two, between the futuristic and more primal Pokemon, and I kind of like that aspect. Terrestrialization, though, I don't have any strong opinions on it yet. I think it's better than Dynamax, but I feel like it's just been downhill since Megas. Megas are pretty cool. They're very unique, and then even Zemus I can tolerate, but Dynamax and even Terrestrializing aren't exactly my favorites. But even all those things considered, I think I'm going to have to at least put it in B tier because I'm enjoying it, and it's better than Sword and Shield. It's just not one of my favorites. Now, I just want to go back over this tier list that I made briefly and kind of just rank them within each tier because I kind of was just throwing them in a tier at a time. I wasn't really thinking much about that. So left is probably best in the tier. So Soul Silver, Heart Gold, that's going to stay. Black and White, yeah, I guess I could leave that one there. I'll probably move Emerald ahead of Legends Arceus, even though I loved it. I think Emerald's just a classic, can't really beat that. This one's really going to have to move around a bit because X is not staying up top. This one's a tough though. I think out of all of these, I'm probably gonna have to move Ruby and Sapphire to the top. Then we'll keep Scarlet and Violet towards the back. I'll say, yeah, X and Y can stay right there. And I'll probably put Fire Red next. Sapphire, that seems about right, except for I'll probably put Scarlet and Violet. Yeah, I'll probably put them at the bottom of B tier. Alright, next we have the C tier, which actually I'm going to end up putting Sword at the top. Even though it's not my favorite by any means, I still did sink a solid 200 hours into the game, so I can't really complain too much. But out of these other couple, probably going to put Sun and Moon on the bottom, because I feel like it just could have been optimized a little bit better. And then, of course, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. It's going to have to stay on the bottom. But yeah, that about wraps up my tier list. If you guys would like to make your own, I'll put the link in the comments section. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.